now we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to the JT Show. Once again, just a reminder to everybody, if you have not hit that subscribe button, do that so you can catch all of our latest and greatest content here on the JT Show. I'm joined today by my featured guest, Steve Hennessey from Golf Digest magazine. Steve, welcome to the show. You are the deputy managing editor at Golf Digest.
I am. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, John. It's great to be on and chatting. You know, you're one of our course panelists for Golf Digest, so we've known each other now going back 5 years, and great to see you doing the show, and happy to be a part of it.
Everybody always comments to me like, you know, how do you meet these people? We had James Spicer from Daphne's Head Covers on a previous episode, and she had, like, you know, the tiger head cover and everything on, and we're like, how do you get these people on the show? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, like, you know, just go around. And we met, you know, 4 or 5 years ago at the PGA merch show down in Orlando. And I think I was working for a company called Grunt Style at the time, and you were doing some writing, and things just, one thing led into another. And then the next thing I know, I'm on the Golf Digest panelist review. So that's you know, kind of just been a whirlwind ride. Great to see that your success, and congratulations on your success with Golf Digest as well, my
Thanks,
friend.
man. Yeah. I remember my brother at the time, you know, he's former military, and most of my family is. So, you know, I knew of Ground Style, and we just kind of got to chatting about golf courses. So that's the cool thing about the golf industry, is everyone has a common connection in some way, and everyone, for the most part, is willing to help each other out. So, you know, you expressed an interest in doing the course rating thing, and you're talking to the right person at the time. So yeah, here we are, both enjoying where we are in life 5 years later. So all good.
Well, let's talk about panelist ratings right now. Tell us a little bit more about the program and what it actually contributes to, and that upcoming issue of Golf Digest we all look forward to every year.
Sure. Yeah. So Golf Digest America's 100 Greatest Golf Courses is the oldest and most respected franchise in course rankings. So in 1966, the editors of Golf Digest decided that they would rank golf courses, and they didn't really have a methodology at all. It was basically what people might expect our rankings to be, and that was just, you know, 100 people in a room smoking cigars and cigarettes, and trying to convince each other why one course is better than the other. And that determined the original list, which was the 100 toughest courses in America. And, you know, that tells you where we are in golf course architecture. Back then, you know, difficulty and toughness really defined what a great golf course was in 1966. And now fast forward to 2023, we have a panel of almost 1,900 course panelists around the U.S. and Canada, of which you're one of them as well. And we've now defined what makes a great golf course, or at least the definitions and the scoring criteria. So there's 6 of them. Our panelists rate each course that they play from 1 to 10. We just simply average out all those scores at the end of every 2 years. Our rankings are published every 2 years. And the only things that we do are we throw out any outliers, extreme outliers. So if something deviates by more than 10 points from the mean score, we figure that those scores are really off base. So it's very scientific. It's also pretty democratic. So it has nothing to do with what the editors of Golf Digest think. It's, you know, by our course raters who we train, and, you know, they apply to become a panelist because they express, you know, that they know their stuff in terms of course design, and they travel a lot. They make their own schedules. They're all volunteers. So it's a cool thing. It's cool for me to be a part of it. I think it's like my 8th year now helping oversee it. And, you know, when I started, I didn't really know much about course design, but as you know, John, like there's a never ending just plethora of information and things to learn about course design. So I've kind of thrown myself into it as well. And even though I don't score the courses myself, I kind of keep my own personal list. And, you know, I have opinions based on where courses are on our rankings, whether they should be higher or lower. So that's the point of the rankings. It's to to promote discussion of golf courses and golf course architecture. And there's probably no right or wrong answer about these things, but it's fun to discuss. That's what we all talk about after we play a round of golf, where a course should be ranked. So it's a lot of fun to be a part of.
You said it's really scientific, and it 100% is. Just speaking as a golf course rater, there's a lot of training involved. There's a lot of recommended reading on golf course architecture. So if there's anybody out there that's interested in be a part of the program, we'll actually put a link down at the bottom to the current course rating list, as well as information on how to become a course rater. But going back to that topic, though, there's a lot of research that goes into it. You said there's 6 scoring criteria, and it's like it is. I mean, it's not like just going out playing around a golf and, oh, I like that course, or that course was shitty. It's right. No, it's actually like really down and into the data, into metrics of what makes a golf course, and a lot of it surprisingly comes into architecture.
Yes,
and that was, I guess, maybe kind of coming in as a newcomer. I mean, I always played a lot of golf too, but coming into the program, that's kind of what took me by surprise more than anything.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people probably think that it's just based on which course gives free golf to a rater, and where the best turtle soup is, or we try to remove all the BS from it. We have strict rules, as you know. There's a code of conduct, and we have zero tolerance. We kick off at least a dozen raters a year, because they've committed an infraction on that code of conduct. One of those is accepting a free lunch. You can't do it. If a course is offering you, hey, come inside and, lunch is on us, we tell our raters, you have to decline unless there's a way for you to pay. And some of these clubs, they don't accept credit cards. So unless you have a reciprocal somewhere, you have to decline. And those things are really important for us. There's other panels and other publications where their rules might not be as strict, but we feel, there's this perception of raters and, that they're in it for the wrong reasons and they just want to play all this free golf. And it's really important for us to strip that out and take that perception out, at least, as it relates to Golf Digest. And I feel we do as good of a job as we can. It's tough with so many panelists out there, but, we encourage all golf courses to let us know if there's any sort of infraction on our code of conduct. And as you know, and you've heard some of the stories, we have zero tolerance for all of it.
In my experience, I mean, it depends on the courses you're playing at. Like, some of the higher traffic courses, they get a lot of raters that come through, and it's like, they be as accommodating as they can be. But I've noticed other times too, at some of the smaller courses, very gracious, very honored to have a member from Golf Digest panelists be on hand. And a lot of times the managing directors or the golf professionals, as well as like the owners, even sometimes will come out and just shake your hand. And I think it's important to just give them a thanks. And they want your score, but I think more than anything, they just appreciate having us out and giving us their unbiased opinion on their course. So it's a great program. Obviously there are others out there, but the Golf Digest program is by far the granddaddy of them all, as we say. So and going back to another thing you said too, like when we start talking about the golf industry, it's really a small industry. I mean, comparatively speaking to maybe some of the other major sports out there, it's just such a small family. I mean, like, you pretty much know everybody we know who our favorite players are on tours and stuff like that. But in the industry itself, it's really small family. So when you go down to the merch show and stuff, you tend to see a lot of the same folks and know who the same folks are and stuff like that. So
now that I've been in the industry for 12 years, which is crazy to say. I started in a cubicle at Golf Digest the week after I graduated from college, and I feel like I know, not everybody, but at all the major places, I do know people, and folks I call my friends, and
Hmm.
it's pretty crazy how small the industry is, as you know.
Now, let's talk industry stuff right now. As
Okay.
many of us are aware, there's been a lot going on in golf. 2024 is going to be a crazy year, and in the years to follow.
Yep.
I think one of the biggest things that I've been hearing and a lot of feedback I've been getting from my friends and people in the industry is this ball rollback issue. I mean, from what we first heard, I mean, it was just supposed to be something that was going to affect the tour pros,
Right.
and then now all of a sudden they announced this decision, and it's like supposed to affect everybody, and there's going to be a major rollback for everybody, including all the amateurs and just everyday golfers. And according to what I'm seeing, like by 2030, there's supposed to be like this. That's when everything.
Correct.
And we're like talking like, well, how is that going to work? Like you're playing in a scramble with your buddies or something, and the other guys say, "Oh, you don't have the rollback ball.
Yeah.
We're going to DQ you." I
Oh
mean,
yeah. There's
what's the
enough
what?
cheating already
Yeah, right,
in scrambles. Like, come
right.
on.
Why? I mean, from what you've gathered, what really was precipitated this decision to make this happen? I mean, this affects so many in our game that
Yeah,
we love.
you're right. I think originally, Mike Wan, the head of the USGA, even as recently as March, said publicly that this is not something that we want to affect the average golfer. We're only really concerned about the professional game, and so, I was pretty surprised. I think a lot of people were that there was a universal rollback instead of some sort of bifurcation. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
more you dig into it, and as you know how the industry works,
Mm-hmm.
money, and this is true of any industry, obviously, but money dictates everything. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you think about all the major players involved, the PGA Tour, the equipment companies themselves, if they were to have to create this second ball,
Mm-hmm.
this is speaking to the equipment manufacturers, if they
Mm-hmm.
have to, figure out the R&D and build, separate, manufacturing processes just for
Right.
this ball that's played by, 1/100th of the golf population, then,
Right.
they're going to lose. It's going to really affect their bottom line. And, just speaking candidly, I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what spurred this decision. I think if it was up to the rolling bodies, we would have bifurcation. But I
Mm-hmm.
think what was important to the USGA and the RNA was that this wouldn't affect the average golfer as much as they hope it will for the professional game. So the way that they've looked at swing speed, a mile per hour, that this new rolled back ball will have a greater effect for higher swing speeds
Mm-hmm.
relative to your average Joe who's hitting it 205 yards off the tee. As it is, I'm pretty close to that average Joe, so I could relate to that sentiment, because it would be a big deal if I'm hitting it 205 off the tee and now all of a sudden I'm hitting it 190. That's really going to affect
Yep.
your enjoyment of the game. But
Yep.
according to what the rolling bodies are saying, it will only be your drives will only be affected by a few yards if you swing at a lower swing speed. If you're a higher swing speed, it's a different topic. But I was really angry actually
Mm-hmm.
when it came out, and I didn't understand why they would do that at this time where golf is growing. COVID, it was a terrible thing for the world, but for
Mm-hmm.
golf, it created this great participation boom. Golf is in the best place it's been since peak Tiger Woods. So why would you
Yep.
reduce enjoyment of the game for people?
Right.
But the more that I'm open to hearing feedback from the rolling bodies, I don't think it will be as big of a deal for the average golfer as I originally thought. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest thing that I'm concerned about, is how it's going to affect all of us. And, if you're taking distance off the tee and, on approach away from us, that's a bad thing. But hopefully it's not as bad as I originally thought it was.
Well, I think we've seen a lot of our tour pros. There's been a lot of people outspoken, on both
Yep.
sides of the fence on this issue. And
Yep.
I've read in the media some of the comments from Rory McIlroy, and he seems to be really in favor of it and kind of really outspoken as to people why they would be questioning it, and which kind of, I don't know, I guess it doesn't really make sense to me, because if here's a scenario that we were talking about just last night. If Rory hits the ball 330 off the tee, and the new ball comes into play, and he's only hitting it three and some change off the tee.
Mhm.
Now, what about your average hitter, tour pro, who's hitting it
Right.
290 or 285 off the tee, and now he's back to like 265 or something like that.
Yep.
There's still a pretty good disparity there. How is this actually really changing anything? I mean, I get it. I see what the data they've released shows, but really when we're talking at that higher echelon of the game, and your average hitter, tour pro, who's still a hell of a golfer,
Right.
but just maybe is not. I mean, and the thing people don't realize is it's only that upper, 5% of the tour actually hit it, 350,
Right.
or 330, and average that. I mean, that's really an uncommon distance,
Mhm.
becoming maybe more common now, but it's still, that 290, 295, maybe closer to 300, is still like average tour distance. Those guys are still going to get knocked back,
Yes.
and it's going to bring the longer hitters like Rory back, but it's still going to have that disparity there. I just fail to see how bringing in the rollback is going to like bring the field closer together. I mean, in some ways, yes, but the longer hitters are still going to have an advantage, and the shorter hitters are going to just get knocked back, at the pro level. Is kind of,
100%. It's a great point, and one that I don't think the average golf fan thinks about, at first glance at this, that this actually creates a bigger advantage, I think, for the longest
yes,
hitters, because
yes,
now you're right, that the guy who's hitting it 280 off the tee, take Brian Harmon, for
right,
example,
perfect
Open
example.
champion Brian
Yep,
Harmon, who
yep,
hits it 285. Now all of a sudden he's hitting it 265. He's
yep,
hitting 5 or 6 iron into way more holes than he was before. And,
yep,
Rory's hitting like an 8 iron. And, Harmon, that kind of player is going to struggle more because it's harder to hit a
yep,
5 iron. I think
yep, yep.
the ruling bodies want to see more of that shot making and emphasize the skill in that. And, I think it's admirable to want that in an ideal world, but I think
Hmm.
your view is more realistic, that
Mhm.
the longest hitters are, this just plays into their hands more, and I get why the ruling bodies
Mhm.
knew that they had to do something, because it was, guys are just going to get stronger, and they still will. They'll get stronger
Yep.
and more physically gifted, and would be hitting it 350 yards, on average in a few years. And,
Sure.
you have to protect, I guess, against some of these courses being obsolete. The thing is, it only affects really a few
Mhm.
great golf courses that they play on tour.
Mhm.
The St. Andrews and Marion and
Mhm.
Augusta.
Mhm.
Um, Other than that, I think these courses, like the John Deere at TPC Deer Run,
Right.
like, it does a good job at defending against par, even as a short golf course. Same with Hilton
Mhm.
Head at Harbor Town. So it's gonna be interesting. Again, it'll be, I think, 2028. This comes into play for the
Mhm.
professional game, 2030 for the average golfer. But I think I'm mostly with you that, I don't know that this was necessary at this time. It feels like they're playing catch up
Mhm.
to, just the last 20 years of inaction in
Right.
this
Yep.
category, that, if they had done something in 2005, we'd be in
Right.
a better place. And they're just sort of hoping this, puts a band-aid on a larger issue. And I would have liked to have seen them do something differently, like attacking the size of club heads. If you just rolled it back to like 400 cubic
Mhm.
centimeters instead of 460, you would have seen a
Mhm.
huge difference. Um,
Mhm.
and that wouldn't have affected, if you created this extra set of equipment for the pros, it wouldn't have affected us. But here we are. It seems like this is going to happen, and we'll see how it plays out.
Definitely kind of feels like the rubber band effect because,
Yeah.
you talk about that era, 2005. I mean, Tiger was in his heyday. We,
Right.
we, we all hear about Tiger proofing courses, and
Right.
courses literally changed. I mean, they were pushing tees back. I mean, they made all kinds of changes at Augusta.
Yes.
I mean, there was just all kinds of things. So I know that golf course owners and in that industry, definitely felt the impact of that. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, why not make a change in equipment? And that's something we should talk about because we've seen that trend in equipment, and it's just been unbelievable how every year. I mean, and I can attest to it with the new driver technology that comes out. I don't know how they can keep doing this, but I mean they keep adding on, making something better, thinner face, jailbreak, all of the stuff that keeps coming out keeps making the ball go farther. But yet now, okay, they're not going to do anything with that. I mean, that's millions and millions of dollars. It's $1 billion industry.
Oh yeah.
And so now we're going to just, okay, try and make one fell swoop and say, okay, we're just going to make a dead ball. Now it's the dead ball era and everybody's going to have to play it. It's like a big shit sandwich. We all take a bite,
As I said earlier, money rules all. So
man.
I think we figured it out.
Well, let's talk equipment. You got we all look forward to the hot list, Golf Digest hot list every year. The latest and greatest. Equipment is a big deal. What do you got to share with us with the hot list coming out this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. How crazy innovation continues to be year in and year out. I mean, I was at our hot list summit a few weeks ago in Orlando, and I feel like the driver I currently have is pretty good. It's a Sim Max. It helps my slice. I hit it pretty well most of the time. But some of the drivers I hit this year, you just couldn't miss. Like even as someone who, has such a out to in swing, is hits a pretty bad slice, doesn't hit it far. I mean, I couldn't miss with some of these clubs. So it's a big year of driver innovation. That was sort of a big takeaway at the summit. And while I can't talk about specific clubs yet until the results are released at the end of January, there are some exciting new clubs from the companies that you expect. There's always a few surprises at the summit of even companies you never heard of, making like cool putters that, you just fall in love with right away. I'm always interested by that and some of the origin stories of some of these smaller wedge companies or putter companies. And yeah, I mean, it's another crazy, complex process that we go through, and it's probably one of the more impressive feats of any magazine publisher who devotes such time and energy to consumer products and reviewing them. So our equipment editors, Mike Johnson and Mike Stachura, they literally spend from May until the results go live in January. They visit all the equipment manufacturers around the country. They go over the white papers from their R&D teams. They, meet. They have a panel of retailers from all the major retailers around the country, and they get the retailers' expertise and analysis of what will do well in the market. They have a group of scientists who are some of the smartest people you'll ever meet, and huge golfers, and they'll sort of break down the science of what the equipment manufacturers are coming up with, and they'll sort of debunk it or not, and say whether it's actual innovation or just more minimal than what the equipment companies are saying. And then the most impressive part is we have 2 weeks of testers who come in and, similar to our course raters, they hit every club over a 3-day, well, I think it's 4-day now. they hit thousands of golf shots over the span of 4 days, and these people are amazing. You know, they're not robots, but that's sort of the point, that they're actual humans with emotions, and you know, they do their best job at removing biases too. And
Right.
most of these people, you know, we have, I think, 14 people each week come in and test all the clubs, and most of the people have been doing this for years, some of them dozens of
Mm-hmm.
years, and they're just really good at not caring about what the name of the club says. They just look at the performance and what it feels like and the sound, and
Mm-hmm.
those results, you know, power uh, our our hot list ranking every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an impressive thing to be a part of. You know, most people probably think, oh, it's whatever equipment manufacturer pays us the most money. You know, then
Mm-hmm.
their clubs get in the magazine. That's not how it works. Our equipment editors have costed us a lot of money over the years by not including certain companies' clubs, even at, you know, at the last minute when they're begging. It's literally costed us tens of millions of dollars. So, you
Wow.
know, we remove that bias as
Yeah.
well as we can, and just like the course rankings, put together a product that we're very proud of every year.
I saw an interesting post on social media the other day that said, you know, because of money makes the world go round, and
Right.
everybody sees their favorite tour pro. Well, what clubs are they playing? You know, and
Mhm.
then they, you know, and the equipment manufacturers realize this, and you know, put their clubs and their equipment in those hands, and they pay them a lot of money to do that. But
Yep.
the post I saw was, you know, like what would the clubs be that the tour players would be playing if no sponsorships were involved?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Right.
I thought that was a really interesting post because I was like, huh, I wonder what they would be playing. I mean, we look back
Right.
years back, you know, all the guys on tour played blades, you know, and blades. And, you know, I tried to be one of those guys for a while and played blades. I mean, I remember I had like a set of Mizuno's MP33s, and those were like awesome, you know, muscle back blades, but they've come out with so much better technology now. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
just, I mean, all of these college kids coming up, most of the tour players, you know, there's still a few out there that play blades, but I think most of our tour players we're seeing with that technology backed iron that
Yeah.
it looks bladish, but there's so much going on behind the face. You
Yeah.
know, it's just
Companies could do some amazing things, and I
right.
think a lot of tour pros will have a split set of irons these days. So they're,
Hmm.
you know, 4 and 5 iron will be, you know, more game improvement-y,
Right. Yep.
closer to what we would play, and then, you know,
Hmm.
blades in the short iron. So yeah, it's interesting from the equipment manufacturer's perspective. You know, they they still spend a ton of money on tour, but one of the interesting trends that's happening is they're spending a lot of money on these influencers in golf, right?
Hmm.
These companies and, you know, group of
Hey, Paige.
golf,
Shout out to
yeah,
Paige.
Paige Sporadic. The good guys are huge. Bob
Yep.
does sports,
Yep.
foreplay
Yep.
from Barstool. You know, they're
Hmm.
spending millions of dollars with these golf brands who, you know, people are watching all their
Hmm.
videos on YouTube and social media. And, you know, to me, I think it's a pretty smart strategy because
Hmm.
rather, and I think you're right, like the top 30 to 50 players in the world, like it matters to people what equipment they're playing. Even like Wyndham Clark wasn't really a known commodity before he won the U.S. Open, but then there was a
Hmm.
curiosity. Okay, you know, what equipment is he playing? Is it something I should put in my bag? But if you take like the 150th best player in the world, like a, I don't know, Nate Lashley or someone like
Sure.
that,
Yep.
you know, I don't think, and no offense to Nate Lashley, I don't think he's driving many equipment sales. And I think
Hmm.
the companies are finally realizing that, like, let's spend the money that we would pay to the bottom tier of the tour
Hmm.
to these brands where millions of people are watching their videos, and we could reach a way different demographic. So that's an interesting thing that I'm seeing happen for the
Hmm.
first time. The last year or so, marketing budgets are shifting where they're spending their money, and you know, I think it's just smart based on where people are consuming their content these days.
That's interesting. Um, one of the features of every issue that I love to look for is what's in the bag,
Yep.
and
Me too.
uh, and I guess if we could offer some advice to your everyday average golfer out there, I mean, when you're looking at what's in the bag, if you get into the specs of like what the shaft weight and the
Yeah.
torque and those specific clubs, and everybody wants to play that, these equipment manufacturers love that because you're going to go out and buy whatever your favorite player is playing. It's probably not going to be what your everyday golfer is probably going to want to hit. You're not going to want to be hitting
Shouldn't be. No.
an X100, tour spec shaft, 130 gram shaft. I mean, you're going to want something that's more suited to your game. So go to your local golf pro, go to your local outfitter, get fitted for what's going to be best for you and for your swing speed and what's best for your game. I think that's the best advice you can give.
It's such an
But
important
yeah,
message because I think most people who are average players and worse players, they think club fitting doesn't matter for me. I'm so bad. How
yeah,
much better could it actually make me? But in
yeah,
fact, all the fitters will tell you that it
yep,
makes more of a difference for you rather than fitting a Tour Pro. So
yep.
you could truly get 15 to 20 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Straighten up your dispersion and actually get more enjoyment from the game if you're a beginner.
Right.
So I would definitely encourage anyone listening who is just getting into golf or hasn't gotten new clubs in a long time, just go get a fitter. There's all these companies now too who will throw in like a free fitting if you buy the clubs through them. So it's definitely a cool process to go and check out.
Now, if you're thinking too that that 150th ranked player on tour, which is still like the upper 1% of
So good, right?
point percentage of all golfers in the entire world, if you're thinking that they don't have an equipment sponsor or anything, they all do. I
Yes,
mean, even your PGA golfing pro at your local country club, they're all on with somebody.
right.
They're all equipment, and they're all specced out, and they're playing the best equipment in the world. But I do hear what you're saying though, that those guys, even though they may not be driving sales as much in the industry, the nice thing is that I know some of those guys, they get a little bit more freedom with what they can play.
Yes,
Like they can put together a bag that's going to work for them, rather than okay, if you're TaylorMade or you're all paying or all Titleist. I mean, you
yes,
got to play all of their stuff, and
yeah.
a lot of times they'll work with you, and they got that tour van. But I like that these lower ranked guys, they got a little bit more freedom and flexibility in what they can play. And there's a lot of great stuff
100%.
out there.
You're
Yeah,
right. I think
yeah.
that's been a benefit to a lot of these guys, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Brooks Koepka was an
Oh
equipment
yeah.
free agent. He has a Strixon deal, but playing some other equipment.
He had that
Um,
Nike Vapor in the bag when he was winning those championships. I'm
that's
like,
right.
dude,
Yeah,
Nike doesn't even make clubs no more. It's
yeah. I
crazy.
think Tommy Fleetwood still has that Nike Vapor 2 iron in his bag, even though he's like full TaylorMade otherwise. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that flexibility is nice for some of these guys. You're right.
So when can we expect the Hot 100 issue to come out?
So the next 100 greatest issue.
No, the hot list. The hot list. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
hot list. My
yeah, yeah,
bad.
yeah.
So yeah, the results always come out during the PGA show. So last week of January, they'll go live on golfdigest.com. And there's all these cool new features that we're always rolling out in the digital version of the hot list, and then they'll be in a print issue shortly thereafter in the next couple weeks. So yeah, late January, early February, you'll be able to see all the reviews and content surrounding the new clubs for 2024.
Cool, cool. And then the top 100, greatest 100. When is that?
Yeah, so that's biennial. So every other year we published our most recent ones this year. So the beginning of 2023. So that means the next ones won't be out till 2025. So yeah, but really kind of cool new feature on our website is we brought back Places to Play, which, as you know, was a great franchise for us.
Mm-hmm.
Started in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and basically assessed golf courses on a star rating. So, we would call every course in America, either, 3-star, 4-star, whatever. And you'll still see golf courses, advertise that they're a 4-star from Golf Digest, even though we haven't done that in like 15 years. It kind of speaks to the level of that franchise. We've brought that back in a digital sense. So we're trying to basically be like the Zagats or Yelp of golf courses. And obviously there's, Golf Advisor and other websites out there, Golf Now. But we feel like our audience, is looking for more, more reviews speaking to the avid golfer rather than like the other crowd that might just be like, hey, do they let you take a cooler of beer to the course? Like that kind of stuff, which obviously people care about, but we hope our audience is like more nuanced than that. So that's a cool thing that just came out also this year. So anyone who's listening to this who wants to review courses, maybe not on the level of John, but the next level down. If you're a reader and a GD Plus subscriber now, you could go to golfdigest.com and submit reviews on all the courses that you've played. And we hope that, there's a community that is formed there. And we get some avid people or prominent people in golf contributing to that. So, there's the ability to, interact with like a Brandel Chambly or, someone who's opinionated, but a prominent figure in golf in that way. So yeah, some cool, exciting things happening. We have a new world version of our panel as well that launched this year. And that's a big initiative of ours. So as you said at the top, if you're interested in becoming a panelist, we've kind of expanded to a point where we don't need more people, but always looking for qualified individuals who will represent us well. So if you are interested, you can send me an email. John will share that in the description of the pod, I'm sure. But
sure thing.
If you think you could hang with John as a course rater and one of our professional reviewers, then you're welcome to apply. We'll see.
You heard it here, folks. Real quickly, I just want to talk about, 100 greatest. I think the Pine Valleys and the Augusta Nationals and the Pebble Beaches of the world are firmly planted in not only in golf, but in the hearts of minds of the golfing world. And those courses are fantastic. They're never going to leave the top. But there are some really fantastic newer courses that have been moving, up the list with a bullet. Talk about some of those courses that we've seen with the 2023 rankings that came out. Kind of some of those hot courses that have made their way into the 100.
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing is always the new courses and, where they stack up against, the Pine Valleys and, the Cypress Points, the ones that are the mainstays. So a few of those this year, Ohoopee Match Club, which is the new course by Gil Hands down in Georgia. A lot of buzz around that. And it was our best new course in 2022. So everyone was wondering where it would appear on our ranking. So it debuted at 34, which is a very high debut on our rankings.
Definitely.
So, that will probably only continue to go up. And, newer courses like a Ballyneal out in Colorado, it debuted on our rankings in 2011 at 95, and it's gone up every single year. It's now 36. That's a Tom Doak course in Colorado. And, this is a private course. A lot of the courses we'll talk about here are private. That course continues to get better and better in the eyes of our panelists. Sleepy Hollow is one that I think needs to be higher. And again, it doesn't matter what I think because it's all the panelists. But, it has undergone a major transformation over the last 10 to 15 years. And, it's now, I think, in the 60s on our ranking. But like Golf Magazine has it. I think they have it in like at 25 or so. That might be a little too high. But I think it's my favorite course anywhere. Sleepy Hollow. They don't pay me anything to say that. I just genuinely think it. Um, it is just so good, and you have to get up to the New York area and play it, John. If you haven't yet, it's spectacular. CB McDonald, views of the Hudson, some great templates. It's as good as it gets, in my opinion. And so that one, that's a bone I have to pick with our panelists. Another new course. Well, it's not new, but since we reduced, a new thing that we did this year was instead of needing 75 ballots to get on our 100 greatest, you only needed 50, and that's over a 10-year cycle. So in the past, there were some courses that would have made our ranking, but didn't meet that high ballot threshold. So one of the courses that would have always made our ranking, but now for the first time it did, was Nanea out in Hawaii, which is a David McClay Kidd course built for, some of the most wealthy people on the planet, the Rockefellers and Charles Schwab. This is a place that people like us are just lucky to get to go for 4 hours. But,
Right.
it's cool to learn about these sort of places and, the place that they do have in golf. So it's cool to see those sort of courses popping up. And I would say as a last takeaway are all these older courses that have been renovated now, and seeing their fluctuation on our rankings is super interesting as well. So, Old Town Club in Winston-Salem, North Carolina is an old Harry Maxwell course, and Bill Corr and Ben Crenshaw renovated it a few years ago, and it debuted on our ranking in 2019 and now has gone up the last 2 years. It's now 54th on our ranking, which, is quite a big increase from 92nd the year before. So these big moves like that, particularly to a course like that has recently been renovated, is always one of the more interesting things to me.
There's a Corr and Crenshaw course back home here where I live in Wisconsin, by the name of Sand Valley.
Yes. Yeah.
And
talk about a hot topic in golf. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, just talk about Wisconsin golf in general.
Yeah.
I mean, we're quickly becoming like the Midwest mecca of golf. I mean, you got, the Kohler courses, Black Wolf Run and the Straits. We had the Open at, I'm drawing a blank now.
Yeah. Aaron Hills.
Aaron Hills.
Yeah. You got Lawsonia. You got,
the Senior Open.
Yeah. The Senior Open.
Point.
At Stevens Point.
Century World.
I was trying to think of Century World. I mean, to me, I think Wisconsin has the best public golf in the U.S., the highest rated public golf. So, it's a great, exciting time for Wisconsin golf, and the Lido coming out. It was new this year. It'll probably be a contender for best new for us. It'll be interesting to see how that debuts on our 100 greatest or second 100 next time. And then you have Sand Valley opening next year. So, I'm hoping to get back to it looks great. So I'm hoping to get back to Sand Valley. There's a lot of exciting things happening there, that's for sure.
Now, Sand Valley actually does have a companion course called Mammoth Dunes. Now, there's a funny story behind that I believe Golf Digest had some contribution on onto the design of one of the holes. Actually, tell us about how that happened.
Yeah, so our every year we have a contest called the Armchair Architect Contest, and in 2017, the gentleman who won, we worked with David McClay Kidd, who built Mammoth Dunes, that the winner of the contest would be able to actually go out and in the field help David's team build that hole. And the hole that gentleman got to help with is, to me, the most fun hole at the course. It's the 14th, the drivable par 4, and you go down into that valley. It's something that if you're not a great player, you still could be rewarded for hitting one good tee shot, and that's what you'll think. That's what your takeaway will be, as you finish your round. And the guy got to go up on a bulldozer and work on shaping that hole, and you got to learn from David McClay Kidd and his team, and he has some really brilliant people working for him. So, yeah, pretty cool thing that Brian Silvernail was the name of that guy. And I think he got a pretty cool experience, one that the rest of us would love to have one day. So.
I've actually played it, and like it's a big sweeper, from off the side of a slope, and you can hit like 3-wood, you can hit driver, you could like hit a duck hook off of it or just a skull one, and it'll run off that hill all the way down to the green, and then I think my ball actually ended up on the green, like it all just funnels down onto the green, but then the green is like insane.
Wicked.
I might have ended up bogeying it because it was just like a crazy green, but
it's like a reverse Redan green on a par 4, which is crazy.
Just a lot of fun. I think that's awesome that Golf Digest afforded that opportunity, and to give somebody an opportunity to help design, it's just amazing. So if for everybody listening out there, if you get a chance, go and want to look for a great buddies trip, or just some great courses to play, make your way down to the Nakusa area of Wisconsin, down Sand Valley. You're transported. I mean, I've never been to Bandon Dunes, but I heard, like I've seen it on TV.
Yep.
You're basically transported out of the trees and lakes and forest land of Wisconsin onto like this sandy, doesn't even look like you're in the state anymore. I mean, you're literally 100%. Transported. So
I don't even know where it feels like. And the Lido, I think, is going to be the craziest experience to, think that you're sort of in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. But it feels like you're out on Long Island playing one of the best courses that existed in the 1920s. And they've literally replicated it, by, the inch in the yard based on old photographs and 3D mapping. Really cool story. So Sand Valley is, that's one of the places I need to get back to in 2024 to play Lido, Sedge Valley. It's really good. They got great accommodations. They got the par 3 course too. The sandbox is great. Court Crenshaw there. So Wisconsin golf, man, it's the place to be.
Let's talk North Carolina real quick. We got the Open coming up.
Yes.
At Pinehurst, number 2 this year. I'm actually going to play it next month.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're taking a buddy's trip down there. I guess they don't have like a ton of play going on. We're hoping that it's going to be nicer, but they're upgrading us, to the Carolina. So it's going to be nice. Give us a little update, maybe a little overview of what we can expect this year down in Pinehurst for the Open.
Yeah, I mean, Pinehurst is one of, the meccas of American golf, and, all the great courses down there. And they have a very reputable course opening. They're opening their 10th course next year. Right. Tom Doak. I think it's expected to be open for, preview play, in April or so. I've seen pictures and it looks all grassed. So, depending on the winter that they have, and hoping it's pretty mild for your trip's sake. I think you could get pretty lucky down there this time of year, especially a couple of Wisconsin guys. You guys will be fine.
T-shirt weather.
Yeah.
It's T-shirt weather.
Ah, hell yeah. Absolutely. Shorts. That's no problem. But yeah, I mean, what makes Pinehurst number 2 are the greens, and, just the geniusness of Donald Ross, and what he did at number 2 is something that every golf course architect has studied in a pretty similar way to St. Andrews. And so, what to expect the tour guys to do there. You can bomb it off the tee a little bit. There's a little space on some of the holes, not so much, but like I'm thinking 4 and 5, you could kind of hit it pretty far out there, but some really impressive elevation changes. And again, the greens, like that to me is the key to Pinehurst number 2. It's pretty similar to Augusta in that you can't miss in the wrong spot. It's all about strategy, and if you are going to miss it, if you give yourself a chance to get up and down, because if not, it's easy to make a bogey or 3-putt on those greens. So it'll be fun. I think it played great the last U.S. Open when Martin Keimer won. Obviously, he won by like 8 shots or whatever it ended up
Yeah.
being, and was sort of a dud weekend. But take Keimer out of it, and I think the next best score was Ricky Fowler at like 1 or 2 under. So I think it's going to be another interesting U.S. Open and a good layout that doesn't necessarily just reward the bomb and gouge mentality. It's really a thinking person's golf course for sure.
I think one of the things that surprised me the most the first time I ever played number 2 was the actual openness of the course.
Right.
I mean, there are trees, it's tree lined, but I mean they're pretty much not in play for the most part. You got like these waste areas and like these clumps of grass,
wire grass.
Wire grass. I mean, you might get lucky more than often than not and just end up in like some hard pan or in the flat spot. But there was a few times where I hit some balls and I you had to take a penalty and pick the ball because you couldn't even get a club on it. Yeah. So I mean, I think it definitely comes down to where you place the ball, but it's definitely taken on this persona of Mecca of golf. The cradle.
Yeah, that's right.
The cradle, the par 3 cradle. That's a lot of fun. I actually prefer number 4. I think number 4 is another. I mean, you talk about Pinehurst, number 2 and number 4 are the
those are the 2 best for sure.
The 2 best,
Yeah, and after Gil Hanse changes to number 4, I mean, I agree. It's a ton of fun. I think number 2 could really beat up people. It does have a lot of width, but with the greens being so challenging, I think number 4 might be a little more playable. So I love number 4 as well.
There's a great course a little ways outside of Pinehurst called the Dormy Club.
Yes, Crenshaw.
Yeah. I mean, that's I think I don't know. Can we call it a hidden gem? I mean, but if you're heading down to the Open, if you're heading down to Pinehurst, check it out. Check out the Dormy Club. I mean, that's a pretty badass course in and of itself.
Yep. So the amount of great golf in that area is pretty insane. It's every corner is a new course, and they're all pretty good because they're built on sand and with some fun elevation changes. The sand hills in North Carolina are great. They just redid Southern Pines, and Mid Pines is great. Pine Needles. I mean, Tobacco Road is one of my favorite courses. That could be a little controversial. Crazy. People like it or hate it, but
Tobacco Road's crazy.
Yeah, it's
mounds, blind shots. Yeah,
it's like someone built the course on acid, and and God bless Mike Strands because he's not with us anymore. But I think he would appreciate that comment. The boldness of that design is so much fun, and I've only played it once, and I can't wait to get back to play it again.
Me too. Yeah. I'm definitely gonna get back on Tobacco Road. That was a trip, man, to say the least.
Yes, exactly. It truly describes it.
I want to change gears real quickly and kind of close the podcast out with a sensitive topic, and one that I'm sure you're pretty well informed on. To our golf listeners out there, this merger with PIF and the Live Golf Tour. We just saw John Rahm make the change over, and we've just been seeing so much outspokenness from both sides. Both camps. I mean, really, really heated discussion. Talk a little bit about what you're privy to with Live and the PGA Tour, and if you could elaborate a little bit on what your thoughts are on what this means for the future of golf.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because we're in this great time in recreational golf. Participation is higher than it's ever been. I think the pro game was so great going into COVID, and then it was the first professional sport back after COVID, and being able to be outside. People found that this was the best sport to play in that new social distancing world. So now to have this division is really hurting the game, and I think fans are probably tired of hearing about it. But at the end of the day, we don't know what the end result is going to be, because nobody does. John Rahm going to live was, there had been rumors for a couple weeks and months leading up to it. But if you were to have said in April after he won the Masters that at the end of the year he'd be with Liv, I think people would have been really surprised to hear that. And I think people would have been really surprised after June 6th and the announcement that the Saudis and the PGA Tour were going into this, sort of agreement. It wasn't totally the merger that we all sort of thought at the beginning, because all it was an agreement to work together toward an agreement. And the only thing binding was the lawsuits that were ongoing to get rid of those. So I think the most interesting thing to me is the Rahm move by the PIF and the Saudis basically signals to me that they were getting fed up with the way that the PGA Tour was approaching this agreement over the last couple months. So, based on what we know of what the Tour announced over the last couple weeks, is they had been working with these other groups, one of which was the I'm going to get the abbreviation wrong, but the group of team owners, this is the sport investment group, who agreed to invest, a couple $1 billion into the PGA Tour. Sure. And, these discussions had been happening for the last couple of months. And I think ultimately what the PIF found was that the Tour were having those conversations without them involved at all. So they basically, I think, made the Rahm move, be like, hey, if you want to mess with us and kind of elbow us out of those discussions, we're here for it. We have the most open pockets. We have all the money in the world. So if you want to play that game, we could play that game, and we'll take your best player. And I think that probably was a jolt a little bit to the PGA Tour. Although I think from just reading the tea leaves a little bit, they still think they could do this without full participation from PIF. They ultimately, I think, would love to live in a world where the Live and the PGA Tours are not so coexistent. But I just don't see a way for that to happen. The Saudis aren't going to back down. It's not like they're going to decide to get out of golf with all the money that they've invested. So, I think ultimately December 31st is a date that originally they said they would want to come up with an agreement on. It doesn't feel like they'll likely meet that. We're recording this on December 21st, and I know that there have been meetings between the two sides over the last week or so, but the fact that we haven't heard anything about those isn't the best of signs. So I think my feeling on how it goes forward is, there's some sort of next agreement to extend that deadline, and we see in January or February that the Tour includes PIF in some sort of agreement going forward. But it's messy, and like I said, no one knows how it's going to end up, because if you were to say you're going to know how it ends up, you'd be lying, because Jay Monahan doesn't know. The head of PIF doesn't know. Right. John Rahm doesn't know. DJ doesn't know. Tiger doesn't know. It's all happening, and it's an interesting time to be in golf content, because there's such an interest, I think, in how this all shakes out. While at the same time, we also know it's not a great thing for our game. We all know that these pros should be paid accordingly for their time, and you look at 3 years ago, how the best players in the world were compensated. That probably wasn't right, and wasn't reflective of how much money the Tour was making. But I think the average golf fan also is kind of tired of hearing about money. Like, right. We just want to watch like the Honda Classic and have some good names in it. We want to watch Bay Hill, like these tournaments that we've known our entire lives, and we want these players to be doing things not just for money but for pride, and that's what we learned that golf is. It's about integrity, and um, we're losing so much of that with this break in the
Yeah.
professional game, and it's really
Yeah.
unfortunate.
I mean, I, I'm a fan of golf just in general. I mean, and these guys that have gone over to live, I wanted to watch it, and it was difficult, if not
Correct.
impossible, to watch. I mean, and
Yeah.
I want to see it and I see highlights and stuff like that. But it's like, man, I want to watch some of that too. There's
Yeah.
big names on the live tour. I was really hoping that, like you mentioned, the merger was going to mean a unification. We're going to get everybody back together for some events. It doesn't
Right.
look like that's going to happen anytime soon. But I don't know. I mean, this just caused a lot of uproar. This past week, Victor Hovland was really outspoken and had some choice words for upper management, at the PGA.
Yeah.
To quote Victor, the management has not done a good job. They almost see the players as labor and not as part of the members. After all, we are the PGA Tour. Without the players, there is nothing. I mean, what does that say? I mean, that's like a shot across the bow of Jay Monhan and the upper management guys, right?
Yeah, and this is someone who's the young star of the PGA Tour
Yep.
calling out his, the tour officials, and I think a lot of most people on the PGA Tour have some gripe, whether you're a more rank and file player, like a Nate Lashley. We'll use him as an example again.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of those guys who just sent that letter a couple weeks back, sort of demanding that their voices were heard more, because increasingly it's the top 5 or top 10 best players sort of deciding the future of the tour.
Yeah.
We saw James Hahn, who was on the player advisory board. He stepped down because he was frustrated that his voice, and he was looking out for the other rank and file players. He just didn't see that happening, and I think people have laughed at James Hahn and some of the things that he said and some of the social media spats. But I think when you look at the arguments he was making, those are shared by a lot of players out there. And now it's come out that Patrick Cantlay is basically like running the show from a player perspective, and I don't think he has the respect that like a Rory McIlroy did. And we saw Rory step down from the board because he didn't like the way that things were going, and was pretty frustrated all the time that he spent. Now all of a sudden his opinions aren't mattering, so it's just a mess. And I mean, the fact that Tiger is kind of referred to the tour not being run great. I mean, he's in these, he's in all these meetings, and he's still frustrated. So things are going to have to change. The players are pretty fed up. It's just so different than any other professional sport, and the major ones in the U.S. at least, where players are part of a union, and the union fights on behalf of the players. That doesn't exist in golf. They're independent contractors, really. So that system has worked for since the PGA Tour was founded by Arnold Palmer and those guys in the '60s. And here we are. It's taken that long for there to be such disruption, and it was a pretty huge event with the Saudis and PIF getting into the game to do that. But hopefully, ultimately, it ends up being better for the players. That's just tough to envision what that will look like at this point.
Right. I mean, just looking at the whole situation, I mean, the hope and the desire is that this is a change for the better. I would agree that I don't think that the direction the PGA was headed was very healthy, especially for the players. And I looked at like some of the things that Phil
Yes.
Mickelson was outspoken for in the beginning, right from the onset. And I kind of haven't always necessarily been a Phil guy, but as more of these information came to light about what was really going on behind the scenes and things like that. One of those gripes was, well, we got millions of dollars. What should we do with it? They're going to take a fraction of that money and do this when it could be reinvested into the lower tours to help grow the game and to help, and that didn't happen. And I was kind of like, well, I think Phil was onto something there, and he moved over and, all of this stuff has happened. I think that change was probably inevitable, but, I think our hope is that whatever happens as a result of this merger and everything, that it's going to mean, the game that we still all love and appreciate, that it's going to be better. Because we all want to watch it on TV. We all want to play it. We all want to play these courses and play these clubs,
Yeah.
and and hopefully not a deadened ball, but
Right.
the stuff that's just happening. It's a crazy time in golf right now. There's so much going on.
Yeah,
And,
it is. It's an interesting dichotomy based on the popularity of the sport, and the pro game was in such a great place. I actually just rewatched the 2019 Masters last night because it was just kind of going viral on Twitter, and I watched the final round, and Tiger winning, and
I was there.
You were there for it?
I was there that year. Yeah.
Were you there on Sunday?
No, I wasn't there on Sunday, but we got to follow Tiger around.
Sick.
For the practice rounds, and it was just like to be there when he won it, to be a part of that. It was just something that'll stay with you, a memory that's going to stay with you forever.
My takeaway was like golf was in such a great place in the professional game after Tiger won, right? Like, it was the new generation of guys got to see that, this is who Tiger Woods is. And, he had his comeback, the return to glory. That was one of the biggest comebacks in sports history. And, all these great players, Brooks Koepka and DJ and Xander and Finau, like had their best shot at him. And, the game seemed to be in such a good place. And now look at where we are not too long after that. It's crazy to think about.
Right. I don't know. It is crazy to think about. I don't know where we're going to be at, but I think one thing we can guarantee is that 2024 is going to be a crazy year.
Yes.
We're going to see some shit. And I'm like a kid with the popcorn, man, just staring and watching, like, waiting to see what's going to happen. Steve, you've been a fantastic guest. I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on and joining on the show, man. Always happy to have you, and you're welcome back anytime, my friend.
Awesome. Yeah, no, really enjoyed the conversation, and thanks to everyone for listening to this. And look forward to catching up soon.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thanks, John. Yeah, that was great.